All right. Welcome back to the Getting After It podcast. Today is a very special episode because this is going to be our very first guest on the podcast. And I'm very happy to say that, we're finally making progress with that. So thanks for holding back. But I want to introduce our guest today. His name is Zach Shepard, and he is the founder of the organization, the Fatherhood Initiative, whose mission is to encourage young men to choose responsible fatherhood by providing resources and information to current fathers and involving every willing person in creating a more father present society. We'll go into that a little bit later into the podcast, but I want to spend some time talk a little bit about Zach's background. So Zach, let's hear it, man. Let's start from the beginning. Where'd you grow up and what were some of your hobbies that you did?
Yeah, so I grew up in Mesa, Arizona. I've always been a huge sports fan. That was like my life growing up. I play a couple instruments, so music's always been a big thing. And yeah, it was, I can't complain about my childhood. Grew up in a great home and everything like that. So, yeah.
Right on. Yeah, you and I actually grew up pretty close. I grew up in Gilbert, Arizona, so it's like right next to each
Okay.
other.
Yep.
Right in the desert,
Hmm.
in the
Yep.
middle of
It
hell,
does
as many people say.
it. Yep.
So, how would your parents describe you as a kid? So you were into sports and all these things, but what were they? Were you the hooligan in the household, or you know, what would they say?
Um, so I'm the youngest of five. So that kind of comes with some baggage with it when you're the youngest. You're always the spoiled one. You're always, getting all the attention, basically, is what my siblings would say. My parents would probably say that I was a go getter. I was always just up and doing something. I hated like sitting still. I was always participating in some sort of sport, outside on a skateboard or something. I was always doing something. So if you ask my siblings, I would be the baby and the spoiled one. If you ask my parents, probably a go getter kind of kid.
Well, hey, I'm in the same boat. I'm the baby
There you
too,
go.
and I was always beaten with toys and putting headlocks and stuff with my brothers. So totally get you there.
Yep, I totally understand that too.
Um, but you mentioned that you played sports all the time. You were always active. And one thing that I actually want to talk to you about after doing some research on like your website and looking at some of the things that you've done is your football career. I was
Yeah,
looking at the article that the East Valley Tribune wrote about you, and I'm just going to quote it from there. It says Shepard led the Blackhawks, which is a team in Arizona, a high school football team, to an undefeated record and state title in 2016. So that's pretty impressive. Let's hear a little bit about where your love for football started and what grade did you guys win a state championship? And that's insane.
yeah, I'll kind of go from the beginning. So I grew up playing football ever since I was little. Like that was just always my sport. I played basketball and different sports, but football was always my love, and so I kind of just went with it. When I got into high school, I started varsity as a sophomore, and that was 2016 when we won the state championship. So that was a good start to the career. And then I unfortunately didn't win a state championship after that year, but uh, we did pretty well. I always had a good team, good teammates, good coaches, and so high school football was super fun. And then I got some opportunities during high school to further my football career and education in college. So I took a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then after that, I attended Southern Utah University and played football for a little over a year. And then that's kind of leading into why I stopped playing and why I founded Fatherhood Initiative. So,
Yeah, and on that same note, so Sports 360 also wrote an article about you, so which is, lots of people are writing about Zach Shepard because you're obviously a go-getter. But they said his first year plus as a student athlete, studying business and political science while strapping on the pads again, was everything he had hoped it would be, but there was a greater calling, one that included him saying goodbye to the sport he loved since his early childhood. So obviously, the calling to start the Fatherhood Initiative um, was a lot stronger than it was to continue playing sports. And um, that kind of leads into my next question that I have for you, which is what caused you to have such a strong desire to become a father? Like where did that stem from? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when I quit football, everybody was asking, they're like, why not just wait? You only have this time in your life to play football. You only have, just a couple more years or whatever it was. And at the end of the day, I just knew that it was the thing that would make me happier. I was super happy with football, super happy being at Southern Utah University and all of that. But at the end of the day, I just realized that the sooner I could get this started, the sooner I could find more fulfillment, more joy, and something that I was super, super passionate about. And so from that, like you asked, my love for fatherhood kind of stemmed from my childhood. I had a great dad growing up. He was awesome. He was my number one supporter, number one fan, and so was my mom, definitely. But me and my dad always kind of connected. We were always, there for each other and different things like that. But unfortunately, he didn't grow up with a great dad. He grew up in a home, pretty much was raised by his mom when his dad was around. His dad was an alcoholic. He was beaten as a kid, just really rough home. And my dad was fortunate enough to get out of that situation. And a lot of people aren't. And so I feel really, really lucky to have the dad that I do, because he was able to get out of that flow. I feel like it kind of goes a lot. I mean, if you have a dad like that, a lot of times you kind of follow that path. And my dad definitely had brothers that followed that path, that have since passed away, and just a lot of tragedies in my dad's family. Anyways, so just from that and learning about that and hearing stories from my dad, but then getting the complete opposite, the polar opposite from my dad, he was a great dad. It kind of made me realize, what, like fatherhood is super important. Being a good dad is super important. And so, and then as I grew up, I got to see kids, whether it was in football or basketball or school or whatever, activities I was participating in, I would always see a common theme. They would always they would either talk really good about their dad, or they would never talk about their dad. And as I got to get to know my teammates and my classmates and things like that, I saw a common trend of father absent homes and what kind of impact that made on teenagers. And so just little by little, I just started, without even recognizing it necessarily, I really got to understand the importance of fatherhood. So yeah, a long story, but that's kind of how it started.
No, I think that's great. And thanks for being open and for sharing that. I think, I was also fortunate enough to have my dad be one of my number one supports, and he's one of my best friends. Like this past weekend, we celebrated watching the opener of the Utah Ute game. We grilled a bunch of veggies and tuna and all this stuff anyways, but we have that really good relationship that unfortunately
Yeah.
so many men, and you can also say women as well, who grow up in those fatherless homes, they don't have that relationship, and it's rough on them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that too. And I was inspired by this tweet that I saw from you, Zach, from I think it was around 2018. But it says
Mm-hmm.
this: it says trials, negativity, and contention are all inevitable in this life, but you can control your attitude and reactions by being a positive and an uplifting person in a world so full of negativity. Look for ways to forgive, serve, or help someone in need. And oftentimes, I think that we we get so focused on ourselves that we don't look for those people who could need help, or who do need that influence in our lives, who, as you saw in your teams and in school, um, people who grow up in those fatherless households, they just might need someone to give them a little uplifting message, or be positive towards them and help them through a difficult situation. Because our world is so negative, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately we have to deal with that. But um, yeah, that's pretty amazing to me that you recognize that already. I think you're younger than I am. I'm 24, so I mean, like, I'm still a kid too, but like,
Yeah.
it's definitely impressive that you were able to recognize that, and that called you to do what you're doing today. Um, because that's the message of this podcast, right? Is like, if there's something that's calling you, you should just go do it. Right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
this was obviously a stronger calling than football was, and you saw that you'd receive more joy doing this than you would with going after football and seeing where that would lead you.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, you kind of went into where the origin for the fatherhood initiatives like came about, but I want to go into like what caused you to start finally getting after it. So what was the catalyst that finally caused you to take action and actually start the organization?
Yeah. So this kind of stems back. I had a conversation. Jimmer Fredette, one of the greatest collegiate basketball players ever, at BYU. He, when I was on my mission, he talked to my whole mission, and I don't even remember honestly what he talked about, but he mentioned at one point his nonprofit organization that he started. And as soon as he said that, a light bulb kind of went off in my mind, and I was like, man, I want to start a nonprofit organization because I always loved service. I always loved, helping people. And as soon as he said that, I was like, that would be like a dream. Like that, if I could do that for the rest of my life, like have my own nonprofit organization and just help people, like that would make me the happiest person in the world. So I was like, you know what, that's what I'm gonna do. After
Yeah.
that, I didn't think about it for a really long time. It was just kind of like one of those things. And then I was in college, and a professor yet again just mentioned a nonprofit organization. Don't remember what nonprofit it was. I don't remember what he was talking about, but someone said not. He said nonprofit organization, and that same light bulb went off in my mind. I was like, I got to do something about this. Like that would be amazing. Kind of forgot about it, but I was at practice that day, and my mind was just wandering. It was just like, got to do it, got to do it, got to do it. So then I just sat there that night and I was brainstorming. I was like, just kind of came to me. I was like, fatherhood, 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 fatherhood. I was just like, here we go. Let's do this. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to go for it. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what my life calling is. And like you said, like, get after it. Like, that's exactly what I did. I was like, let's do this thing. So I was thinking, like, okay, how do I start? I was like, a website. Let's just start designing a website. Start there, put all my thoughts on it, kind of structure how I want the organization to be, how we can make a difference, and what we can do to make a difference, and just different things. So I started the website, designed it, and then I started social media pages, and I bought the domain, and I, just did little things here and there for about a year. And then a year later, I was like, here we go. I'm going to just kind of launch it, make it public, tell everybody about it. And I was doing it for that year. I was doing it behind the scenes. Like I told my parents, I told a few friends, different things like that, and everybody was super supportive. And then when I launched it, like I just got the most positive feedback I could ever get, more feedback than I thought I would get. And so it was just step after step, little thing after little thing. Like I just started this thing, and it's been spectacular. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And I honestly, I love that mindset. That's the same thing that I did with this podcast, is like, I'll just figure it out as I go, like one
Yep.
step at a time. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now you and I are recording this on Zoom, which is not the best software. But like, it's what I got. So it's what I'll
Yep.
use.
Yep.
But going back to what you were saying about, starting the organization and all that, um, I do want to make one thing clear. You're not a father, right?
Not a father.
So were
Nope.
you a little bit worried about that? Like,
Yep.
yeah,
I
did
definitely was. Like, I feel like I was just like, this is kind of like, I thought it was weird. I thought I'd lose credibility. Like, who is this, 21-year-old kid, 22-year-old kid how's he gonna tell me about fatherhood and how important it is if he's not even a father? But I think it goes back to making it unique. It makes
Yeah.
it different. It makes it, I've realized the importance of it. I can't wait for the day that I'm a dad. But right now, as a 21-year-old kid, I have a little bit different perspective when talking to our generation, to talking, to a younger crowd. And that's exactly what this is, aimed at, is younger kids like our age that don't necessarily have the desire, and eventually I want to, broaden that to just fathers in general and just everybody. And I've been trying to do that, but at the end of the day, yes, I thought, I was like, man, people are not going to give me the time of day if I'm just this kid that's not even a dad. But at the end, like I'm saying, just at the end of the day, it's given it a unique perspective and kind of really shaping it to what I want it to be, I guess.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that wasn't like I didn't want to call you out or anything like that, because I think
I'm
it
glad you
also
did.
it goes back to your mission of, you don't need to be a dad to be a good example of
Yeah,
what a father
exactly.
is. Um, I have two cousins that, they lost their father at an early age, um, and like I developed a relationship with them that I consider them brothers now, and we talk all the time, and I think they trust me with a lot of things, and I'm not their dad, but they can come to me with some problems that they might have gone to their dad to speak about. Um, so I don't think, I'm also not a father, but I don't think you necessarily have to have children in order to accomplish your mission of being an example and helping the younger generation become the fathers that we need in society.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so yeah, thanks for going into that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and you also mentioned Jimmer Fredette. So
Yeah.
hey, he's pretty good. You have lots of different celebrity stories on your site, like testimonials, different examples. LeBron James, by the way, is one of my favorite basketball players. So
There you go.
I was stoked on that one. But who out of all of those fathers has inspired you the most, and why?
That's a great question. I hate to keep it in the basketball world. Trust me, there's a lot of
It's
dads
all
out
good.
there that are outside of the basketball world, but I'm going to stay in it. I'm going to go Steph Curry, because ever since I have started this and learned about, just good examples of fatherhood, I've tried to make it relatable to just every audience. And so actors, sports players, you name it, there's dads out there that are being very successful, but have said, hey, being a father is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Chris Paul has a quote, and it's the best, or being a dad is the greatest thing ever, or something like that. But anyway, Steph Curry he won. I can't remember. I think it was after he broke the record for 3 points made or something like that. He handed the game ball to his dad and said, "I owe everything to my dad." He's also been one of like the leaders in promoting women's basketball because he has two daughters or three, I can't remember, but he's just a super girl dad and loves his kids and is always talking about them, and they're always next to him. They're always there courtside or whatever it is. He's just been a huge example and is a huge promoter of fatherhood. And so just like watching him and just like his life and how he goes about his life and does his business and everything, everyone says he's just a good guy, a great dad, a great teammate, whatever it is. So I always kind of looked at him as just like one of those celebrities that's just up there as probably one of the best dads, one of the best, examples to all of us. So
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I mean, what's his little girl's name? Do you know?
I
I can't
feel
remember,
like I
but
know it, but
yeah, she broke the internet a few years ago when like she jumped on his lap after a post game interview. Do you remember that one? And was
yep,
like
yep,
doing that, but that's good. Yeah, I know he's doing great things. Going back to LeBron James, um, I think he's trying to do the same thing and accomplish the goal of helping. I mean, his goal is to play in the NBA with his son Bronny, right?
yep,
And then he
yep,
also has a school, so he's like trying to promote kind of the same message of like, hey, this is why I'm doing it. I didn't grow up with these kind of things, and I've seen it.
exactly.
But yeah, that's pretty good. But shifting gears a little bit, what is one thing that people misunderstand about the Fatherhood Initiative?
I think we've already kind of touched on it, and it was how I kind of felt inadequate because I'm not a dad. And then you kind of touched up on it and said, like, you don't have to necessarily be a dad to be a good example and set a good example and talk about it and be open about it. I feel like it's a really closed minded thing of, oh, once you're a dad, you'll figure it out, you know,
Yeah.
or, just once you have a kid, you'll understand, which is totally true. And I can't imagine what it's like having a kid and the love you can feel for them and stuff like that. So I'm not downplaying that at all. But I think one thing that's just misunderstood is that, okay, I'm not a dad, or I'm a woman, or, whatever it is, whatever the circumstances are, or, guys that just can't have kids, couples that can't have kids, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of like those kinds of situations that it's like, okay, well, like, yeah, fatherhood's great, but I'm in this situation or whatever it is. So that's the message I'm trying to say. And being the founder of it, as I'm not a father, it's exactly what I'm trying to get across. You can promote fatherhood, you can promote a father present society and realize the importance of fatherhood and talk about it and share with friends and just be more open about it. I was talking with a friend today and she said, I'm in like I can't remember what it was. It was like a family life development class or something. And she said, there's only two guys out of like 80 students in the whole class. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, it's this like, this like vibe of just like guys being like, I'll figure it out when it comes. Like, I won't
Yeah.
be a dad till I'm 30, which is fine. Like, if that's your goal, that's your goal. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like we need to talk about it more. We need to be more open about it. And it all just kind of circles back to that being the one thing that's misunderstood about Fatherhood Initiative is that you don't have to be a dad to talk about fatherhood. So,
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's a really important thing to know. Cause like what I was saying about my cousins, like I developed that relationship with them, but both my brothers are married and they actually all have kids. And they've said the same thing is like, you know, once they became a dad, their life changed dramatically, like
of
100%.
course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I saw their countenance change and them become better people because they were putting, their children first and like thinking about how can I be the best person to influence them to become the people that I want them to be in the future, right? Or
Yeah.
how can I help them leave a positive impact on society? So I think that's great. And yeah, if we can get one message across in this episode of the podcast, I think you don't have to be a father in order to provoke. Excuse me. You don't have to be a father to promote like a fatherhood like figure, if that makes sense. If I'm
Yeah,
if
of
I'm
course.
portraying that right, like you can
No, I
still
got
be
you.
a positive influence. You can help. You can serve. All the things that like a father would do, um, and just be a better person. Like think of others
Mm-hmm.
first and help them out.
Yep.
Um, and going into another question, and this one I think is kind of important. I was a little bit worried, I'll be honest, when I first initially came across your website. I was like, everything is about dads. Um, what about moms? And then obviously my questions were answered the more research that I did. But in your opinion, what role does the mother play in the home?
That is a great question, and one that I can obviously talk about from my mom's example. I had an amazing mom as well. And I think that was another worry for me when I was starting this. I was like, I really don't want to diminish the mother's role in the home because it's just as, or probably even more important, as we all know, because we all
Yeah.
think about our moms and they're loving and they're amazing. And mom can make a huge difference in all of our lives. One thing that early on when I was starting the podcast, I watched this TED talk and it was with not a lawyer. Why can't I think of the word? Anyways, she was some type of lawyer, that advocated for fathers' rights in divorce law. She was a woman. She was a mom. She had multiple kids, and she just talks about how it's a father epidemic, not a mother epidemic. And she was powerful. I suggest everyone should go watch it. Her name is Marilyn York. So Marilyn York TED Talk, it'll pop right up. The TED Talk's amazing. But one of her quotes in that video is, advocating for fathers isn't about diminishing mothers. Because we should always talk about mothers because they're just as important or more important, like I said. And I think it's just really crucial to realize that when we talk about fatherhood, it's not taking away motherhood. And that Fatherhood Initiative, one of the things on our websites just talks about how we really encourage marriage. We really encourage in wedlock marriage or in wedlock births, because one of the statistics that's outstanding is out of wedlock births in America and abortions and different things like that. And although I don't want to get into the political side of things or whatever, there's just some statistics that definitely can be changed. So anyways, we definitely promote motherhood. We definitely promote marriage and all of the above. But like Marilyn York said, it's not about diminishing mothers. It's just we're advocating for fatherhood because that is the epidemic. That's where the statistics lie, in the fatherless homes and different things like that. And so we just kind of obviously definitely need to remember our mothers and how amazing they are, but realize at the same time that the problem is in fatherhood.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I agree 100%. There are some single mothers out there who inspire me and who I look to and say, I don't know how you do what you do.
Definitely.
Whether it's they have one kid and, they work a full-time job, or they have multiple kids and have to work many jobs, but it's just, they understand what it takes to raise kids. And unfortunately, some fathers are just like, I'm out. Hey, see you later. That was, I'm like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Which is a really unfortunate thing to happen. But I think going back to what you said about marriage too, having that like companionship, I think probably helps you guys not only like bounce ideas off each other of like how we want to raise our kids or how we want them to grow up. But it's just like a support system. Like, I'm here for you and you're here for me. But yeah, I wanted to make that very clear too, that you're not detracting from the importance of mothers, because we need moms too. Like, I'll call my mom late at night and be like, Mom, this girl set me up on a date. She stood me up. She didn't come. And my mom will be there and listen. So like, she's always there no matter what. And it's important too. So
yeah. And one more note on that, just really quick, if I can.
Yeah.
I was sitting in a political science class last semester, and we actually, there was a lady that sat right next to me, and I could tell she wasn't like, student age, and as the class went on, she started talking about how she was a mom, and, because it was a very political, very opinionated class. So she had a lot of different opinions from, the 18 to 25-year-old kids in the class, because she was the only one that wasn't like that age group. Anyways, as the semester went on, I got to know her, and I started telling her about Fatherhood Initiative and how I was like about to launch it just as soon as everything was ready. And she was, just amazed by it. And it was really, eye-opening for me when I got to talk to her. She was a single mom. And so her kids didn't have a father. Her husband left. I can't remember the exact story, but she told me, she's like, as a single mom, she's like, I am very proud of who I am and how I've raised my kids. And she started talking to me about how, but she realized that her kids still were always missing something. And she's like, although I love that I'm a single mom and that what I do is amazing, she just kind of told me, she's like, I've always realized that there was something missing, even though they had their grandpa and that they had father figures. She just realized that, there definitely could have been a father in the home that would have made a difference in a different way than the mother did. So anyways, she just was like after we had conversations, every time my eyes were open. I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, you're amazing as a single mom. So like you said, like, I can't even imagine what single moms go through in raising kids. And we all know a single mom out there because it's really common. I think it's 1 in 4 grow up without a dad. So, that means there's 1 in 4 single moms that are raising kids. So it's definitely important to recognize that single moms out there, you're doing amazing. You are amazing. But definitely we can still advocate for fatherhood.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that story. Like, for that example that you just shared about, the woman that you met in class, like, think about that. She has to go to school. She has to make time in her day to go to school. And then she has to make time in her day to raise her kids and be there for her kids. But
Yep.
then she also has to probably work and then study too, if she wants to pass. So she has no time to herself. But the fact that she also recognized like that her kids miss something, that's where we can step in and help, right? And that's
Exactly.
kind of the message of the organization. But with that being said, and along the lines of like the father not being present in the household, do you know like what the most common cause of the dad not being present is? Is it divorce? Is it like you said, out of wedlock births? Like what's the most common cause of this fatherless household epidemic?
Yeah, so I've looked into that a lot, and the most common thing that I can find, and the statistics kind of lean towards those out of wedlock births. I can't remember the exact statistic. Just give me a sec. I'll pull it up really quick. But basically, the most common occurrence really is out of wedlock births. And as soon as they find out, hey, me and this girl got pregnant, I'm out of here. That's usually how it goes, which is really sad, but that's definitely kind of how it goes. Let's see. In 2019, there were 1,498,000 out of wedlock births. That is 40% of all births in the United States.
Holy cow.
And so from what I've read and what I've researched and things, that is the main contributor. Obviously, there's a lot of different situations. The divorce rate continues to go up year by year, different things. But I think out of wedlock births really cause a huge problem in this fatherhood epidemic, like you were saying. And so that's one of the other things, like, although it's called Fatherhood Initiative, we're advocating for everything, sex education in schools, because it's obviously not that great if we're having 1.5 out of wedlock births.
Right.
And so we need to teach young men more about sex education and having just different perspectives on different things. And so I think that would probably be the best. I don't think it's like set in stone that that's the most common way fatherless homes come about, but I would definitely say that's probably up there.
Yeah, and that's unbelievable just to hear that.
40%.
Oh man.
Crazy.
And I think it goes back to exactly what you were saying. It's education. We need to find ways that we can teach the younger generation, and that's what you're doing. You're trying to find ways that we can do that and help others promote that to the younger generation. But on your website, there's a huge section that goes into 4 core principles: love, patience, forgiveness, and giving. And are those 4, in your opinion, those 4 principles, if they are taught to the younger generation, is that what's going to help us promote a more father present society?
I really believe so. Earlier in the podcast, we kind of talked about, you brought up a quote or a tweet that I tweeted, and it kind of touched on like selfishness and just how our world's negative and different things like that. I think as we grow away from our selfish desires, we put others first. What fatherhood and motherhood is all about: putting your kids first, loving them, giving to them, and just being there for them. I think just following those standards as a society we could probably see huge, actually, I know we would see huge strides in becoming a better society in general. And fatherhood is just a tiny part of it. And that's the one thing that, I love and I've always recognized as a good thing. So that's what I'm doing. But no matter what you do, if you do it in a loving way, if you're willing to give to others, there's just so much that can change. And we've talked about single moms, we've talked about motherhood, we've talked about fatherhood, we've talked about, our generation. No matter who you are, you can love other people. You can give your time to other people. It doesn't matter the situation you're in. You can find ways to do that. And I think as we do that little by little, changing the world in those kind of aspects, we're going to just obviously, with time, see a change in the statistics we've talked about, no matter what it is. And so I think definitely those four core principles are huge in creating just a better society in general.
Yeah. And I agree full-heartedly. I think they're so important to apply to your own life to help you get outside of yourself and think about other people. Unfortunately, we live in a society that's so self-centered. I think,
Yep.
Social media and all these different things that we have access to have kind of accelerated that and have made it so it's like, oh, I have to be perfect because my best friend just posted a picture of her in Bali and she looks great and I need to, top that. So it's like,
Yep.
what can I do to make myself look better? But when we should really be trying to help other people and think about the importance of loving others and being patient with them, forgiving them when they, do us wrong, and then giving our, whether that's giving them, monetary things, like not monetary things, that might not be the right word, but it doesn't have to be anything like physical. It could be giving of your time. And I think that's the most important part, at least from what I've seen with like my experience with my dad is, you know, I remember some of the gifts that he gave me, but what really meant a lot to me from my dad was the time that he would spend with me. I always talk about my, um, like we used to have these outside barbecues where we'd spend the entire day swimming and my dad would grill corn and, all these different things. And we'd just spend the entire day together. And I know that for him, that probably wasn't easy because, he has a job, he's got other responsibilities. But the fact that he decided, it was important enough to him to give a little bit of time to me, that meant a lot.
Yep.
And I just, yeah, I love that idea. And I think if we can help others understand that and understand that, you know, put others first sometimes, once in a while, you'll probably be a little bit happier too.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Now I want to help get this message across to other people because I do think it is very important. So what's one way that we can get involved? Say I want to go take action and support the organization, the Fatherhood Initiative, like right now. What can I go do?
That is a great question. And that's one of the hardest questions that I had to ask myself as I started this. I'm like, okay, well, how can people make a difference, right? And in the early stages of this organization, I think the biggest thing is just recognizing it as a platform and a lifestyle, right? So what people can do is they can go to our website. There's your role pages on there. So there's fathers, there's future fathers, young men, and then women. And so you can go to any one of those your role pages and figure out how you can exactly, change the fatherhood narrative, right? And then obviously following the social media pages and educating yourself about fatherhood through our social media pages or other social media pages and other organizations, whatever it may be. There's a lot out there that you can educate yourself with, and then be an advocate for fatherhood. I think that's the biggest thing. Is just be an advocate for fatherhood, recognize the importance of fatherhood. And as we do that, and as we, change people's mindset on fatherhood, that's when our society as a whole is going to realize the importance, and we're going to change those statistics in making a more father present society, like our mission statement says. So if you're a listener out there and you want to know what you can do, visit our website, follow us on social media or other, organizations that promote fatherhood, educate yourself. There's tons of stuff on our website as well. But at the end of the day, just be an advocate for fatherhood. And as we do that, we'll make a more father present society.
Yeah, I love that. And that's honestly the mission of the podcast too. Like, if we can get one person to take action and become a better father, in my opinion, this episode's a success.
A success, yeah.
Like, having a father present in the household, I've recognized is such an important thing. So, as Zach said, if you're a listener out there and you want to help support, his website is called it's just fatherhoodinitiative.org. So go there, show some support, follow him on social. But I would also just jump, or I guess piggyback on some of the things Zach was saying, and just be a good example of how you would want, your kids to be raised in a society. If there's someone you're sitting by in school, who doesn't have a father in his household or her household, talk to him, be a friend, help them out a little bit and encourage them. And like Zach's tweet said, be positive, be a positive, have a positive attitude in such a negative society, and look for ways to forgive, serve, and help. And then, by that and by working together and promoting this message, like we can work towards making a more father present society and helping, kids and others grow up and become better people overall. But yeah, I love what you're doing, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. And I would just say keep getting after it, with the organization and promotion. And I would say one thing: you got to get some t-shirts made, man. I rock one of those things. Get some.
Did you see those on social media?
Yeah, I saw them. Yeah, if you want to go see the shirts we're talking about, go check out his social pages. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited about those. Still working on those. Moving across the country has kind of made a little setback in that, but we're gonna get those made so we can get those out and so people can start rocking the merch.
Well, let's make it happen. And as soon as we do, as soon as he releases those, everyone go buy a shirt, and that'll be the start, because then we could promote the message even a little bit better. So
of course.
Anyways, Zach, is there anything else that you wanna share? Anything else you want the listeners to know or to leave with today?
No, I think I'm good. I just like we said during the podcast, just be positive, be a good example, and promote a more father present society.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that. And I like to leave the listeners with a weekly quote, and you sent one to me. Do you have that on you right now, or
I do not. I have it right here in my notes.
No worries.
See if it loads.
No worries. That's a good one, and I want you to read it if you
can. Thanks. I am struggling to get it up right now.
No worries. I'll read it. I'll read it for you.
Hey, it's all you. My bad.
I know you're good, man. It's all good. Technology. We've had a couple of those this episode.
Yeah.
The quote is this, and it's from Ronald Reagan, and he says, "We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone." And do you want to say anything about that? Why that's so important to you?
I mean, it's in everything we've talked about, whether it's fatherhood or just being a good person in general, right? Like the president of the United States can't help everyone, or whoever it is, right? Like there's just so many situations where it just comes down to every individual. We can all make a difference if we all if we all commit to making that difference and helping someone else.
Yeah, I love that. And you can make a difference. If you're out there and you're listening to this and there's something that you want to start, or there's a nonprofit, you have an idea like Zach had, and you think you can make a difference, just do what Zach did. and start with what you got. Take one step at a time, go from there, and you'll be surprised. Things will start falling into place. And um, like the quote says, we can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. So there's one person out there that you can reach and help. And I firmly believe that. And again, yeah. So I'm glad you're on, Zach. Thank you so much for being the very first guest on the Getting After It podcast. It's pretty
I am honored.
hey, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, thanks again. Follow him on social, and we'll see you guys in next week's episode. But thank you so much again for joining today, Zach.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good.